Hello everyone and welcome to our latest Friday Fundamental webinar, and today we'll be working on an outdoor living space. So my name is Colin Moore and we'll be focusing on setting up a site plan, drawing a deck, creating a screened-in porch, and tracing a retaining wall. I wanted to start with creating a site plan, so we'll want to do that from either the main floor or the basement. But just at the very beginning, I wanted to show you what we're going to end up with today. And so here's the deck and the screen porch, and then putting the retaining wall a bit further back in the backyard using the new water feature polygon and drawing a fence. All right, so to begin with, I'm just going to take the updated floor plans out of the model. So I'm going to take this and then replace it with this main floor, and then take the site plan out because we're going to start from scratch. And so you can drag and drop these out of the model, or you can right click on them. It's up to you. So now we're just left with the bare bones. All right, so to get the building footprint or the building outline, just want to start from one of our floor plans. In this case, since the grade is going to be abutting up against the basement, I'm going to start from the basement just to be as accurate as possible. So just make sure that you're in site mode when you're ready to create a site plan. We just want to go up to the Draw tab, click on Building Outline, and then Generate Building Outline. So as you can see, it creates a new drawing for us, prompting us for a name. I'm just going to call this Site Plan. Okay, so the building outline gives you an idea of the building footprint, and it will automatically cut a hole into the property. That way you don't have any grass going through your building in 3D. Okay, so since we have that generated, first thing you'll probably want to do is to draw a property polygon. So we want to go up to Draw Sight Line Property. If you have specific surveyor coordinates available to you, you can absolutely use this option, but I'm just going to roughly sketch this out just in rectangular format and use the line method. Okay, so just a rough sketch is all we'll be needing today. Once we've sketched it out, we can make it any size we want. So in this case, I'm just going to use the dimension and put one horizontally across the front and then vertically along the left side. So in this case, it's just going to end up being 100 feet in width and then 150 feet back. So we can put in this value and then, of course, choose what end of the dimension we want to change. This is pretty centered, so I'll choose the double arrow. And then to edit this back here, make sure we have enough space and set the back arrow here. All right. So we have the size that we want. And so let's just make sure that this is added to the model because as of yet, the site plan is still under the site plans category. So we want to right click on the drawing we want and say add to model. Now with site plans, you always want to make sure that it's added to the bottom. And I'll be showing you why here in a second, just by using the building position setting. So we just want to right click on the site plan and say move to bottom. So by default, it's going to want to sit at the lowest point of the lowest drawing, which in this case is the basement. So it's a little low for what we're wanting here. So we'll want to go into the site plan, make sure you're in site mode, of course, and go up to draw and then site options. So this is just more of a shortcut to the drawing options, but we're going to be using the building position. So just to go back to the 3D for a sec, so the site is a little low, so we're going to want to take the building and bring it down about 3 feet. So that's the value we're going to use here for the building position. So we want to check this box and enter in our value. Make sure it is 3 feet down, just in this example, and so that will take all of the drawings assembled above the site plan and bring them down 3 feet as a unit. So taking the entire house and putting it into the ground. As you can see, that's much better for what we were looking for. All right, usually what I do next here is to edit the corners of the site just to get an idea of the grade you're looking for. Okay, so just going up to the edit item command and edit each corner. The front, we're just gonna start with just a 0 inch or 0 feet for the elevation. And for the back, we'll want 4 feet. Okay, and you can see since I edited the third one and went to the last one, it already kept that value, so I didn't have to enter it twice. So if we go to 3D, it will be slight since we're going across 150 feet of site, but you can see it is a gradual slope from front to back. Okay, now besides from editing the corners, we'll also want to put in some additional shot points because we will have a deck here and a retaining wall, but we'll want to put some shot points going across. To do that, we just want to go to Draw Grade and Shot Point, and we can set the elevation beforehand in version 2020 just to save you an extra step so you don't have to edit them after the fact. So we'll want to keep this at 0 actually, and set to New Point. To make sure that it's right on the edge of the property, I'm just going to turn on my cursor snap and put it about here, because it depends on the size of the deck in this case, but now that we've added one, I just wanted to put one over here too. And so for any additional ones, I'm just going to use the copy command. Now you can use the C key as the keyboard shortcut, or just go up to Move, Copy, and add some more across. You can add as many as you want. As you start putting in different elevations, the more shot points you have, the smoother your grade is going to look. Now in this case, you could space them out, or you could just choose multiple placement if you just want to place them at random intervals across. All right. So now you can see the site plan is nice and level up until where I put those 0 foot shot points here, and then it goes up a little more drastically up to the 4 foot mark at the back of the site. So that gives us a nice flat ground for our deck. That should be enough for the site plan. So we want to switch to the main floor and start drawing the deck. All right, so you've probably done this before, but we just want to go up to the Draw tab, click on Deck, and Deck again, and this will add all the components. We want to make sure it's a fair size, just to compare. So the main floor first here, this is what we'll end up with. So I have a couple angled corners here, so we can include that in our initial trace. Right. So we'll get started here. So to trace on an angle, we just want to unlock the cursor just by selecting the lock up here, or just by using F12. So just for a 45-degree angle. Actually, we may want to come out a little further. So I'll come up a bit more. There we go, all the way across. All right, so all the way around, even on the interior corners. All right, so when we're finished, you'll see the deck. Now, in some cases, you may see the deck joists as well. In this drawing, they've just been turned off by default. But if you did want to see the deck joists, you just want to go up to Options, Visible Items, and under the group visibilities, choose Deck. So anything you want to see, we can turn that on or off. Because you can see by default, the reference edge for the deck joists is one of these angled edges. So if you did want to change that, we just need to right-click on an edge, the edge that you want actually, and go to Edit Edge. So there's 2 reference checkboxes that you can choose to select. One is already selected, and that's for the surface boards. So if this is the reference edge, as you can see the surface boards run parallel, and that if an edge is being used as the reference, you see it appears as a triangle rather than a circle, as you see for the other edges. But let's make it the reference edge for both of these items, and you can angle them as needed. So for the deck surface boards, we're actually going to have them display on an angle. So I'll just put in a 45 value here. Okay, so now that we've made sure that deck joists are running in the proper direction, we can turn them off if they were a little too busy, if they weren't really necessary to see at this point. So we can turn them right back off. Okay, and let's add the wraparound stair. Right, so now that we have the deck drawn, if you did need to adjust it any further, you could. So just going up to the Adjust Item command, if it wasn't wide enough, you could make some slight adjustments here. But let's go to the Draw Deck Stair, and we're going to sketch a wraparound. Actually, we'll need to make an adjustment here before we do that. So I'm just going to use the A key as the keyboard shortcut and make sure it comes all the way to the house. So let's check what we've done so far in 3D actually, because we may have to adjust the offset. Right, so to make sure it comes up closer to the patio door, we just want to edit the deck here and make sure that it's offset up, in this case about 1'2". Okay, and if you did want to do this after the fact, you might just have to do a cleanup if you'd already added railings and stairs, and that way they'll update to the new offset of the deck. So that's not a problem. You could adjust the offset now or later. And if you put symbols on the deck, they will update after a cleanup as well, as long as they're set to stack. All right, so back to the draw stair. Let's go to wrap around and start tracing. So for the first segment of stair, we'll draw that, but it will require a third click as to what side of the trace line the stair is going to be drawn. So just make sure that it's on the lower right side of the trace line and click a third time. So then we can continue with the additional segments. So I'm just going to continue drawing all the way around as far as we need to. When you're finished, you just want to right click. And so there's our stair. The stair will have to be edited slightly as well, just to make sure it goes right down to grade. So in this case, for the stair rise, so just the total height of the stair, we just want to increase that a little bit. About 3'1" should be fine. And to make sure that it's updated, we want to do a cleanup. So just Control C in 3D or plan. There we go. So then it just updates to with the new height relative to the deck. And let's go ahead and add a railing. So back in the main floor tab, if there are additional tabs that you have open and you want to close, just to note, you can right click and close them. All right, so back to draw deck, except this time we want to go to railing. Let's choose the glass round. And so just to fill in these spots here, so just a left click to start, left click to end. There we go, and right click to finish if you were done drawing the additional segments. So let's start adding stuff to the deck. The first thing is I just wanted to add a hot tub symbol over here. So when you go to draw symbol, if you're not entirely sure where you found a symbol previously, but you know the name of it, you can do a search here in the bottom left corner. So in this case, we're looking for hot tub 04. Whether or not it has caps lock on doesn't matter too much. I just had it turned on when I was naming the site plan. So we want to go to this symbol here. It takes you right to it. So it takes you to the library and highlights the symbol that you searched for. And if you were adding multiple symbols, you can move this dialog up into a corner out of the way. If you wanted to continue adding additional ones, if there were more in this library or some other things you wanted to add. So we're going to add that here. Will require 2 clicks to insert it. So the first click and then the second click to choose what direction it'll be facing. So we want to place it here. Before we leave the symbol dialog, I'll add a few more. We'll want to go to the outdoor furniture library, and there we go, and there's a couple benches. All right, this one should work. So we'll want to put one over here, and we can put one down here. If we do need more space, of course, you can adjust the deck up or around. And as for a patio table, there should be some in this library as well. Some of them are assembled symbols, so they'll come with additional ones as well. In this case, some chairs. If you'd like, you can place that over here. And so if you're not sure what assembled symbols are, so they're just a symbol that's made up of multiple symbols, and they're easy enough to create. So just to go over that here, if you were to right click and explode this, or actually, there should be some other ones, so for example, let's take this hot tub and the benches. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. In case this was a configuration that you use a lot, for example, just make sure that you have all your symbols drawn in a certain area. Maybe off to the side will be easiest. And we want to go to File, System Options, and System Library, and you can choose wherever you want this symbol to be saved. I'm just going to put it under Details just for this example. And you want to go to the one-step button. And so you can see over in the status, it prompts you to draw a box. So when I draw a box around these symbols, you can see it's now one piece. So then we could type out whatever it's made up of and press OK. So now it's available as its own symbol that can be drawn as a unit. So if you do go to draw symbol, you can see it brought me right to this symbol that I just made, and it can be added as one piece. Now, if need be, if I don't need all three pieces, I can right-click on it and explode it. So now it's just the regular Hot Tub 04 and these benches here. Okay, so that's how you can make an assembled symbol and how we did it if you were looking for a dining table that was fully set with all the cutlery and all the chairs. It's just an easy way to add a bunch of symbols at once in certain configurations. Right. So next we're going to edit the hot tub. Make sure it's sitting in the deck. So in this case, we want to make sure it's the proper offset. So we want to make sure it's set to ground, and then negative 11 should do it, just so that the surface of the hot tub is roughly level with the deck. And now we do want to draw a hole in the deck. So we want to go up to Draw Deck and choose the framed opening polygon. And to make sure it's as exact as possible, we can turn on our cursor snap and start tracing around here. And so once we've finished, now we won't be seeing any deck going through the hot tub, and we'll be adding some parting board as well, just for the perimeter of the deck and around the hot tub. Move that back over. Okay, so in the deck pull down, we want to go to parting board. First, we'll add them to the deck edges. And so we don't necessarily need the cursor snap on, so I can toggle that off. And we just need to click near each deck edge. And you'll see it's snapping automatically to the perimeter. Just quickly finish that up. There we go. And then they do nicely miter at each of the corners. But if you wanted to add a little bit of extra detail, you can always choose to put it around or make any shapes you'd like within the deck itself. So in this case, let's go back to parting board and then choose this parting board command. So the trace line will be the center of the parting board. So with this irregular shape, it might be a little tricky. And so we can add one at a time, unlocking the cursor. Go and just finish this all the way up. But if you do need to make some slight adjustments, you can. I just wanted to give you an idea of what you could do with the parting board command. There we go. If you do need to make slight adjustments, you can definitely move that in. Some slight adjustments. Or you can erase and redraw certain segments. But just to give you an idea, and so you can see the parting board coming all the way around. Okay, and let's add a bit of lighting to the deck. So we want to go up to Draw Electrical, then Electrical Symbols. The lamp I was looking for, it should be under the Manufacturer and SoftPlan Plus library. And so in the Eglo lighting under Post Lamps, there should be one here starting with 942. But again, if you didn't want to look through all of these library items, you could just do a search here. So as you can see, 94217, it'll give you a list of results, and it tells you exactly where it is. So you can choose the tall or the short one. I'll just choose the one that's slightly taller. I'll add a few. I'll put some over here. And then if you want one directly across, you can add it again. And then maybe one a bit more over here. There we go. Okay, now you'll see in 3D, they're in the deck a little bit. So we'll want to edit these symbols and make sure that they're set to stack, because currently they're referencing the ground. But if you want it to see the deck and offset up on top, just make sure they're set to stack. And so that goes for anything that you want it to sit on to a desk or a table. As you can see, we have to do the same thing here and make sure that it's referencing or just set to stack. When it was set to floor, it was looking for any floor system. And since a deck isn't technically a floor, it was just sitting on the ground or at 0. So make sure that this is set to stack as well. And just a repeat edit should do the trick. Okay. And we also want to make sure that these are set to stack, because they currently weren't displaying on top of the deck. There we go. All right, so the next step is drawing a screened-in porch. Now, in the standard library, there should be a wall type near the bottom. So we just call it 3.5 screened wall. And I'm just going to trace this first, and I'll show you the wall definition after, just to get an idea, give you an idea of what it is and what it's made up of. Right, I'll add a couple 45 degrees here. And come back. Now, usually I would have the main floor in one of these windows, and I would move my 3D textured view over to my second monitor, which you can use, or which you can do by using the move to new window. But since I'm just working on one monitor here for you guys, I'm just kind of toggling back and forth. But as you can see, there's the screen wall, and it's just made up of a screen material and just 2 plates at the top. There is a none material, and that's just for the plan representation to give you a sense of thickness. If we didn't have the none material, we would just be seeing the screen. And as you can see, there's the cut line for it. All right, so that's our starting point. We will add a screen door to it as well. So when you go to add a screen door, it should be available under exterior door and then screen. In this case, just looking for a 36 by 80 metal screen. If you need to, again, you could just do a search. And then just to look through that list, as long as you spell it right. All right, so it takes you right to it. And you can add it. You can choose whether or not it's swinging in or out. And if the wall that you were adding it to wasn't long enough, you can choose to resize the opening. So in this case, I will. I'm not too concerned with the size. And if you don't want the dimensions generating for everything that you're adding, you could choose to turn that off just in this session of soft plan, so you can disable this button here. Just to make it a little less busy while I'm showing you guys how to make the screen porch. All right, and then we will add a symbol inside, and that'll be in the outdoor furniture library as well. And so it's just called a lounge chair set. So somewhere to have your breakfast in the morning. And so I will add some vertical pieces to the screen wall as well. And you could do that through the wall definition if you wanted to have studs instead of posts. But I'm going to end up adding the posts manually, but you could replace the none material with studs and assign a spacing to it. But in this case, it doesn't look as symmetrical as I was wanting. So all we need to do is replace the none material with stud, and you can see we get our vertical members. And you could, of course, change the color and even turn off the header for the door, just to remove any extra framing. But I want to be very specific with these vertical members, so I'm just going to change it back to a none material. But you could set the spacing here for this wall type and manipulate it if you wanted it to. But let's go back to none for this example. And on the main floor, I'm going to add some pressure treated posts. So when those are in the structural library, just a 4x4 should be fine. We'll want to add one first because I want to make a few changes to it. We want to turn off the pad footing, and I believe we want to offset it up a few feet. Let's go with 2 feet for now. Now, if you need to, you can also surface edit it to change the texture or color. And as you can see here, I've just made it white to match the plates and the railings. But now we can set any kind of spacing we want. So we could use the copy command. Just make sure that you select the right item. If there are a couple things over top of each other and it's getting a little difficult to select a specific item, you can always right-click. So when in doubt, just right-click, and we can move this over, add a few copies. There we go. So we're finished along that one. Add a few more. Put one over here. And to make sure it's put in the exact spot you want, I like using the keyboard arrows, and that moves this item in 1/8 inch increments. And then you can press the home key to place it. And so along this segment, I'm just going to use the copy command again. Okay, place a few more down here. And then one last one against the wall. Up here, we can adjust the wall joins later. Okay, so just to give you an idea, this is what we have so far. And we're going to add a roof over top. So with the main floor open, we want to go to roof mode and go to the trace roof command. Now, some things you may want to set up beforehand in the roof options would be the overhang, maybe the pitch, and the heel height. So just to make sure, or to prevent or avoid having to make changes after the roof is drawn. And so I've already made a few changes. So I made the default pitch 3 inches, so a bit more shallower. The overhang 6, so a fairly small overhang for this porch. And the heel height, I just made it 2 inches. That's just this vertical offset here from the top of the wall or beam. Okay, so let's go with the trace roof command and just draw around the perimeter. As long as you're somewhat close to the wall, the roof will find it and of course reference it. Let's take a look. So there's the roof. A couple things you may want to do in this case if you don't want any gutter. You want to go to the fascia soffit tab, turn it off. Now I just have the fascia displaying as black, as you can see, for the main roof. That's why it comes out black by default. We'll want to edit the interior edges so that we can facilitate drainage a little better. Set it to an intersect with a vertical pitch. And we'll also want to reduce the overhang because right now we have some roof protruding into the house. So we could set it to 0, or we can add a roof hole in case we wanted a little piece to extend a little further. But I'll just set it to 0 for this example. Okay. All right, so there we have our roof. If we wanted to see it a little better, this might be a little hard, we can change the roof material. Let's change it to standing seam metal, just to get an idea of where these roof lines are, if you need to change the pitch a little bit. So we could actually edit this roof edge here in 3D. If you want to right-click on the fascia and do so. If you want to verify that you've edited the roof edge, it should bring you to a roof edge tab, compared to if you edited the roof as a whole, it would just say roof. So right-click on the fascia or gutter. And let's change this to a gable. That should help. Okay, so now you can see the roof extends right to these house walls. So we're not going to catch any water in here. So there's a quick rundown on how to make a screen porch. All right, now I want to switch over to the site plan and add a water feature or a little pond off to the side, but I'm not really sure where the deck is located. So what I would do is to turn on an overlay. I'm just going to save what we've done here. But to turn on an overlay, we just want to go up to the File button, go to Overlay, and select our main floor. So now we get an idea of where the deck is located and where we can fit the pond off to the left. So it should be available in the Site Work pull-down, just called Water Feature. I'm just going to draw it as a spline here, so really any shape you want. It's just going to be more of a kidney shape, I suppose. All right, and let's go to our 3D and take a look. Now, if you want to move a little quicker to a certain area, you could go up to the camera tab and click on Look at Surface. And so to click on the surface you want, depending on what you clicked on, it may move a little further in. So if we select this wall, for example, that'll bring you right in and look flat on that surface. So it can be pretty useful if you're navigating around 3D and don't want to spend as much time doing so. So we have our pond here, and you can see it's cutting the ground. And so that's an option in the edit menu. It might not be cutting the ground by default. You can see it's if that was disabled, it's currently sharing the same plane as the property. So you want to make sure it shows up nice and clear. So make sure it is cutting the property polygon. You can also change the depth if you need to, but what I'm going to do is to surface edit it and play with a few of these settings for a second, as well as the reflectivity. So I'm going to reduce the relief depth to 0, and I have the reflectivity brought all the way up. Now to actually view reflections in 3D, we just have to turn on the master switch in the mode options. So up in the options tab, you want to go to mode options and then the face options tab. And so this checkbox here will turn on the reflectivity for any surfaces that are using it. And so we just have to manually regenerate the 3D views at this point. And so you can see it just looks like a mirror reflection of the house, and you can see the sky here. But to make it a little more realistic, that's where we can increase the relief depth a bit. And so it analyzes the surface of the texture that we've assigned to the water polygons. You can see a little bit more realistic with the ripples on the water here. And you can also reduce the opacity to make it a little more see-through. So it's all in the detail for sure. Okay. Now with the reflections turned on, it will usually take a little bit longer to generate your 3D views. So by default, we usually have this turned off, but I just wanted to show you that option here. Okay. Now for the edges of the deck, if you did want to apply a skirt, you could do that in Plan by editing a deck edge, or we can do it in 3D just by right-clicking on the ring joist. And so there'll be a checkbox here for skirting. You can choose how tall you want it to be. We just want it to be around 3 feet or so in this case. And we can also close the edges of the wraparound stair just by enabling Show Skirt in the wraparound tab. And we can do the same with the other side. So editing this deck edge here, making sure it's also 3 feet. And you can see the stair is edited as a whole, so it did both sides for us. Now to make sure that the skirt matches the texture of the deck, you can always use the surface copy paste. I use it a fair bit. So it's just a matter of selecting the texture that you want that's already on your 3D. And then the second click is choosing the surface that's going to be pasted onto. So for instance, we can make the deck white, or sorry, the bench white by going to the surface copy paste command, choose something that's white, and then choose the surface you want. Because they're the same symbol, they both updated at the same time. Okay, now next is going to be drawing a fence and then the retaining wall along the back. I'm just going to save my changes again. Just a good habit to get into. But in the site plan, we want to add a fence at this point, make sure it's on the outside of the pond. We want to go to our site work fence. And so we can choose one that we want. Let's go to wood fence. Now let's choose the alternate panel. Okay, so just a left click to start. We can go as close as we want and come all the way back. All right, so we'll finish on that side. When you're done tracing, it is a right click. And the fence should automatically follow the slope of your property. So you can see it does go up at the back and it follows it pretty nicely. We can change the colors and textures of the fence as well, just depending on what you need. You can also add a fence gate. So if we zoom in, we can do this on both sides or just one. So going back to the site work pull down, the second option is fence gate. So we just need to left click to start the trace of the gate, and then a left click to finish, and actually a third click to choose what direction the gate is going to open to. So we can open it into the backyard. You can see the swing is now visible. We can edit this gate to change, well, whether or not it's 1 or 2. We can have it display open in the 3D model and also adjust the width. So we can make it exactly 6 feet. Let's take a look. So there we go. We have the gate drawn in here. We can add some additional site polygons. I just want to do the retaining wall first. All right. So I want to start by drawing a wall. So I'm just going to switch to drawing mode here, just to make sure I have that option. You can see most of the site info has been removed, or actually everything has except for the overlay. So if you'd like, we can turn some items on, just so we have an idea of where everything is. We want to go up to options, visible items, and in this case, we want to go to site and turn a few things on, like the property. And we can also turn on shot points. All right, so we have an idea of where everything is. And let's add a retaining wall, so just a concrete wall, nothing too special. Right, let's add this over here. And so it will require 3 clicks for the first trace. And let's add a few shot points. So we just want to go back to site mode. Actually, we can set the height and offset of this first, or later. It's up to you. I'm just going to set this to 6'3" and offset it down a few inches, just so that the footing is in the ground. Okay, then we want to add some shot points at the back side of the wall and the front side. And so we're going to go up the full 4 feet. So we want to set the elevation. We can set the 4-foot ones first. So let's make sure it's 4 feet up. Set the new point. We can choose whether or not to have the snap turned on, but I'm just going to make sure it's right on the edge of the wall, adding as many as you want. Okay, so we have them along the back. Now we're going to add some 0-foot shot points along the front of the wall. And so just make sure that this is set to 0. New point. And so add just as many, maybe a few more along the front. So that way the grade will be sloping within the wall. And then to have it taper off to the right and left, we could add some additional ones and maybe set them to 2 feet, just off to the side. And then we could have it set to a foot or 0 off at that edge. But again, the more you add, the smoother the site will look, and I'll show you what it'll look like here in a second. Okay, and we can copy this if we need. All right, so let's take a look at what we've done. So we have a retaining wall here, and you can see it's now sloped up a few feet. Let's reduce this a little bit. So we actually want 4'3". There we go. That'll bring us closer to the surface of the property. And then let's add a planting bed here. So to do that, we want to go to site work, and there's a polygon here called planting bed. So we're just going to trace this using the line method. And so you can choose whether or not you want the snap turned on. Let's just draw this as a rectangle to start with. Okay, so we have that drawn. If you did want to chamfer any of the corners of a site polygon. It doesn't have to be a planting bed, it could be anything. You just want to go up to the Tools tab and click on the chamfer, or you can do a curved fillet. But then we just need to click on the two edges that you want, and we can set a particular length for the chamfer. 3 inches, you can see it gives you a preview. Let's try 6 inches. So a little bit more. And then repeat that for the other corner. But in addition, you could edit an edge of a site polygon and apply a radius, so you get a nice curve. That way you don't have to draw these small straight segments to make it appear like a curve. You could just edit a straight edge and apply a radius here. So with the radius value, the larger you go, the more subtle the curve will be. So we could try typing in something pretty large, like 120 feet. And so that's the radius of this entire imaginary circle. So for this length, you can see it's a fair bit more subtle. So you can see if we made this something like 80 feet or 40 feet, it's a lot more drastic of a curve here. But we can set the curve, and let's take a look in 3D. We may also want to make sure that this is cutting the property. So we can edit that in Plan or 3D and make sure that Cuts Ground is selected. That way we can see it clearly. And we can add some shrubs, add some trees in here, and then a driveway and sidewalk. All right, so with these shrubs, we just want to add them as symbols. So down in the landscape library, actually I just wanted to show you there actually are some assembled symbols. So we've made some planting beds with some billboard symbols or full tree symbols in them. So you can add them as a block to a certain area. So for instance, we could add one over here. But you can add the shrubs separately just by going down to Tree Billboard. There's a sub-library for shrubs. So we can add a few. You can see in Plan they're just represented as a single line. So it's not going to add a lot of surfaces to your 3D view, so they won't affect how long it'll take to generate. But what they do is they follow the camera as you rotate around your 3D view so that you're constantly seeing the front of this. As you can see, it's just a thin plane. All right, so we'll add a few more of these. And then take a look. Saving at certain intervals. There we go. So there's some shrubs that we've added. You can see as I rotate the camera, those shrubs do follow it. Now, aside from some shrubs, we do have some tree billboard symbols that you can put in the background, so it just gives you a sense of these trees, but doesn't add a ton of detail or a ton of surfaces actually. There we go. So you can see those in the background. But we do have more detailed tree symbols that you may want in the foreground of your 3D model. So going back to Draw Symbol, aside from the billboard symbols, a little bit further down are the medium and high surface count trees. And that just refers to how many surfaces they're made up of. So with some of these trees, these could contain a few hundred surfaces. The high surface count trees could contain a few thousand. And so to get an idea of how many surfaces you're getting in your 3D view, we just want to go to the 3D tab, and so it'll just take a second here. And we want to look up here. So right now we have about 500,000 surfaces here. Let's go back to the site plan, make sure that these are set to, well, let's set them to ground, yeah. And the last thing we want to do is add a driveway and a sidewalk to the front. So we want to go back to the site plan. And in this case, in the site work pull down, we want to go to driveway. We can choose the width of it right off the bat. So we could choose something like 12 feet. And the align edge or center is just the trace line with your cursor. So we want to press OK and start tracing driveway. We can go right to the edge, and then the third click is choosing what side of the trace line we want the driveway added, so we can choose that one, and then right click to finish. Okay, we can do the same with the sidewalk. So up here, let's change it to 5 feet, and then we can choose to trace it and continue right to the gate, and then right click to finish. Now in this case, you may want to add some edges to the driveway. So this is a feature I use quite a bit. So instead of having to redraw the driveway to incorporate the walkway to the front door, you can go up to the Tools tab and click on Insert Polygon Edges. So this works for any polygon. So whether you're doing it to a ceiling, a roof, in this case a driveway, you can add edges to it without having to redraw. So the first click is selecting the polygon, and now we can start tracing those extra edges. So it might be easier with cursor snap on for the first click so that you choose the corner you want to start with, and we can turn it off or continue snapping to items. All right, so let's go down and then return to the driveway. So now you can see those extra edges were added. We can adjust it as needed, but we didn't have to redraw the whole driveway. All right, so let's go over to the front here, and we may want to adjust the offset a little bit, or we can edit the driveway and make sure it's fitting to the property. And so that's the fit site object to ground. So in case the property was sloped, you can always select this option so that it will better conform to the property it's placed on top of. So you can see we have the driveway here, and I made this sidewalk the same texture. Just in case you were curious what the texture was, I'll zoom in here a little bit. So you just want to right click on whatever you're wanting to change, and in the texture color column, so this is in the exterior finish library under concrete and then pattern. So this one is just the concrete pattern 15 that I decided to choose, and you may like it for certain applications. But that's about all I wanted to cover today. I hope you guys learned a lot. Thank you very much for joining me. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us here at support. We'd be glad to help you out. I'll show our email address again on screen here. Now, just as a reminder, we do post these videos on our website as well as on our YouTube channel in case you wanted to rewatch certain parts or you couldn't make it to one of our sessions. But other than that, thanks again, and bye for now. Have a good weekend.